My friends, let me tell you something important as we begin. Success, real success, doesn't disappear overnight. It doesn't fall apart in a single moment. No, no. Success fades the same way health does. Quietly, slowly, almost imperceptibly through small daily errors in judgment. And before you know it, your confidence is dimmer, your habits are weaker, and your life is drifting in a direction you never intended. That's why I call these errors diseases, the hidden diseases of success. Not because they're dramatic or painful at the start, but because they're subtle, small, comfortable. And that, my friends, is the danger. If you burned your hand every time you made a bad habit, you'd quit the habit in a day. But life doesn't work like that. It sends a whisper, not an explosion. It gives you warnings, not punishments. A little less discipline here, a little more excuse-making there, and suddenly the week looks the same as last week, the month looks the same as last month, and the year looks suspiciously similar to the one before. See, most people don't ruin their future with one big mistake. They ruin it with small ones repeated faithfully. Isn't that something? Failure is nothing more than a few errors in judgment repeated every day. And success, well, it's just the opposite. A few simple disciplines practiced every day. So tonight, what we're going to do is shine a little light on the errors most people never examine, the ones they defend, the ones they justify, the ones they say, oh, it's no big deal. But let me tell you, if it's repeated, it is a big deal. If it becomes a habit, it's shaping your destiny. These quiet diseases can cost you opportunities, relationships, peace of mind, income, and in some cases, your entire future. But here's the good news. Once you identify them, once you see them clearly, you can replace them with the habits that produce growth, wealth, confidence, and character. So think of tonight as a diagnosis, not to shame you, but to prepare you. Because you cannot change what you are not willing to confront, and you cannot confront what you cannot see. We're going to uncover the 6 daily habits that quietly destroy success. And then we're going to talk about their antidotes, the disciplines that build the life you've been wanting. And as we go through each one, I want you to ask yourself a simple question. Is this disease living in me? If the answer is yes, don't feel bad. Feel aware. Awareness is the beginning of transformation. That's the gift. Because the moment you stop tolerating these small errors is the moment your life begins to rise. And oh, how quickly it rises once you stop the slow leak. Now, let's get into the first disease, one of the most common and one of the most costly. Now, let's begin with one of the most widespread diseases of success, the habit of complaining. And let me tell you, my friends, if there were an Olympic sport for complaining, some people would win gold without even training. Because complaining is easy. It requires no discipline, no skill, no strategy. Anybody can complain. It's the language of the uninspired and the soundtrack of the unsuccessful. And yet here's the curious thing. People defend it as if it were harmless. I'm not complaining. I'm just expressing myself. I'm not negative. I'm just being honest. No, no. Complaints may be dressed in noble clothing, but underneath they are the very habits that drain ambition, drain creativity, and drain the energy needed to build a better life. Jim Rohn used to say, complaining is like an infection. Get too close and you'll catch it. And he was right. Spend enough time with complainers and pretty soon you'll start to echo their language. You'll talk like them, think like them, and eventually you'll get the same results they get. And those results are rarely impressive. See, complaining is dangerous because it tricks the mind. It makes you believe you're doing something when in reality you're doing nothing. You're not solving problems, you're reporting them. You're not taking responsibility, you're outsourcing it. And worst of all, you're rehearsing a mindset that says, I am powerless. Life is happening to me. Circumstances control me. That's the ultimate lie. Because once you believe that, you stop looking for solutions and start looking for sympathy. You stop looking for opportunities and start looking for excuses. You stop leading your life and start letting life lead you. And the tragedy is this, the more you complain, the more you notice to complain about. The mind becomes a magnet for misery. If you complain about the weather, the traffic, the government, your coworkers, your routines, your schedule, pretty soon everything is a problem. And when everything is a problem, nothing gets fixed. Nothing improves. Nothing grows. Now, let me give you the antidote. Jim Rohn taught me years ago. Responsibility. Not blame, not guilt, not shame. Responsibility. The quiet, powerful, liberating truth that says, if it is to be, it's up to me. Responsibility says, I can respond differently. I can think differently. I can act differently. Responsibility puts you back in the driver's seat of your own life. Try this exercise. For 24 hours, just one day, refuse to complain about anything. Not the weather, not the traffic, not your job, not your partner, not your children, not your schedule, not your past, nothing. Just 24 hours. You'll be amazed at two things. First, how often you want to complain. Second, how much more control you gain when you don't. Instead of complaining, try asking this simple question. What can I do about it? Because the moment you ask that question, you move from powerless to powerful, from victim to responsible. And that shift, that tiny mental pivot is where progress begins. My friends, complaining is easy, growth is harder, but growth pays better. And once you remove the habit of complaining from your life, you create space for gratitude, creativity, and solutions to show up. And I promise you, you can't build a great life with a complaining tongue. But you can build a powerful one with a responsible mind. Now, once we remove the habit of complaining, there's another disease waiting right behind it. A close cousin. A clever one. The one that sounds smart, reasonable, even logical, but stops more people than any obstacle in the world. Let's talk about that one next. Now, my friends, after we deal with the habit of complaining, we must look at its slightly more sophisticated cousin, the habit of excuses. Complaining sounds negative, but excuses sound intelligent. That's why they are so dangerous. At least a complainer knows they're complaining. But the person who lives by excuses believes they are being practical, sensible, even wise. But make no mistake, excuses are the language of a life going nowhere slowly. Jim Rohn used to say, excuses are the nails used to build a house of failure. And that's the truth. Because everybody has an excuse factory. Everybody. Some people run it part-time. Some people run it full-time. Some folks run it like a corporation. Well-funded, well-staffed, open 24 hours a day. And the problem with excuses is simple. They give you permission to stay the same while convincing you that you're doing your best. Isn't that something? You hear people say, I don't have time. Sounds reasonable. But let me ask you, who does? Nobody has time. We make time. The timing isn't right. Let me tell you, the timing is never right. Not for getting married, starting a business, reading a book, changing your life, or pursuing a dream. If you wait for perfect timing, you'll wait for eternity. I'll start Monday. That's the classic. You know what Monday becomes? Next Monday. Then the Monday after that. Pretty soon, you're out of Mondays. But the most deceitful excuse of all, the one that sounds wise but destroys destiny, is this one. I don't know how. My friends, nobody knows how at the beginning. That's why we start. That's why we learn. That's why we grow. If not knowing how was a legitimate reason to avoid action, we'd all still be crawling on the floor at age 30. A baby doesn't say, I don't know how to walk, so I won't try. No, he gets up, falls, tries again, and eventually becomes unstoppable. Excuses make inactivity sound intelligent. That's their trick. And the more you repeat them, the more convincing they become. The more convincing they become, the less action you take. And the less action you take, the more your dreams drift into the distance. Not because you lack talent or opportunity or potential. No, because the excuse habit quietly ate your future one day at a time. So what's the antidote? Execution, not perfection, not brilliance, not confidence. Execution. Start small, start rough, start confused, start afraid, but start. You can fix a bad plan, but you cannot fix no plan. You can adjust your direction, but you cannot steer a parked car. Here's the question Jim Rohn liked to ask. If not now, when? If not you, who? And the moment you take that seriously, honestly, personally, you break the back of the excuse habit for good. Try this. For the next 7 days, whenever you hear your mind offer an excuse, any excuse, pause and say, do it anyway. Tired, do it anyway. Not ready, do it anyway. Uncertain, do it anyway. Busy, do it anyway. Because the people who win in life aren't the ones with fewer excuses. They're the ones who choose action instead of explanation. Remember, my friends, excuses delay your future. Action begins it. And once you stop letting excuses run your day, you take back the steering wheel of your life. But even after you stop complaining and stop excusing, there's another silent habit ready to sabotage your potential, one even more subtle, because it doesn't look wrong at all. In fact, it looks normal. It looks harmless. It looks like what everybody else is doing. Let's talk about that one next, the disease of drifting. Now, my friends, once we've cleared out the complaints and the excuses, we arrive at one of the most subtle and destructive diseases of all, drifting. And let me tell you, drifting is dangerous not because it feels painful, but because it feels easy, comfortable, natural. Drifting is what happens when you wake up without a plan, move through your day without intention, and go to bed without progress. And here's the tragedy. Drifting is so common that most people don't even recognize it as a problem. They say, I'm just going with the flow. That sounds poetic, but it's really another way of saying, I'm letting life decide for me. Jim Rohn used to say, days are expensive. You can spend them any way you want, but you only get so many. And that's exactly why drifting is so costly. You don't feel the expense today. You don't feel it tomorrow, but let 6 months go by, let a year slip away, and suddenly the price is obvious. The job hasn't changed. The income hasn't grown. The habits haven't improved. The life hasn't expanded, because drifting produces motion, but not progress, activity, but not advancement. You can be busy all day and still accomplish nothing meaningful. Let me paint the picture. You wake up in the morning and the first thing you reach for is your phone, not your goals, not your journal, not your vision. And the moment your thumb unlocks that screen, you've already surrendered your day. You start reacting to the world instead of directing it. Messages, notifications, other people's emergencies, other people's opinions, other people's priorities. Before you know it, the day is running you instead of you running the day. And drifting isn't always laziness. Sometimes it shows up as being overly busy, always in motion, never in control, doing everything except the things that matter. That's still drifting. And the truth is, you can drift for years and not even realize it, because drifting doesn't shout. It whispers, tomorrow, later, someday. But let me give you the cure. The antidote to drifting is simple, and it's powerful. A written plan. Not a wish, not a hope, not an idea, a written plan. Jim Rohn said, don't start your day until it's finished on paper. And that one discipline can transform your entire life. Here's a practice that works wonders. Every morning, write down your top 3 must complete actions for the day. Not 12, not 23. The 3 things that move your life forward, your highest priority. The one thing that, if completed, makes the day a success. One small promise to yourself. A promise you absolutely keep no matter what. This builds self-respect, and self-respect builds discipline. Then once a week, sit down and review your direction. What worked? What didn't? What needs adjusting? Once a month, set your targets. You don't drift into greatness. You plan for it. You aim at it. You move toward it on purpose. My friends, drifting is the silent thief of potential. It steals days, then weeks, then years. But intention gives life structure. Purpose gives life momentum. And once you begin directing your days, truly directing them, you start to feel something extraordinary. The sense that your life is in your hands again. Not fate, not luck, not circumstances, you. But even with a plan, even with direction, there's another hidden disease that slips into the mind. One that can poison the whole garden of your thoughts. It's one of the most destructive forces in human life. And it creeps in quietly. Let's explore that next. The disease of pessimism. Now, my friends, once you stop drifting and begin directing your days with purpose, you'll encounter another enemy, one not outside of you, but inside. And this one is subtle. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It doesn't strike quickly. It spreads quietly. It doesn't ruin your life instantly. It erodes it slowly. This one is pessimism, the mental poison that convinces you the future isn't worth building. Jim Rohn used to say, pessimism will ruin your life faster than disease. And he meant it. Because a disease can destroy the body, but pessimism destroys the mind. And once the mind is poisoned, everything else begins to collapse. Your confidence shrinks. Your creativity fades. Your ambition dims. Opportunities pass by because you convince yourself they were never real to begin with. Now, what does pessimism sound like? It's simple. There's no point. It'll never work. People can't be trusted. I don't want to get my hopes up. I've tried before. It's too late for me. And the most dangerous one, this is just who I am. See, pessimism dresses itself as realism. It pretends to be wisdom. But in truth, pessimism is just fear wearing a suit and tie. It's cowardice packaged as caution. It's the habit of always expecting the worst so you never have to risk being disappointed. And that, my friends, is no way to build a future. Let me tell you something. It is impossible to lead a great life with a negative mind. Pessimism clouds your vision. You can't see possibilities. You can't see opportunities. You can't see potential. You only see obstacles, problems, and reasons to stay exactly where you are. And here's the tragedy. When you expect the worst, you subconsciously gravitate toward it. The mind obeys its dominant thought. If you expect failure, you prepare poorly. If you prepare poorly, you perform poorly. And then you say, see, I was right. No, you weren't right. You were fulfilling your own pessimistic prophecy. But here's the miracle. Pessimism can be reversed. And the antidote is one of the most powerful disciplines you will ever learn in your life. Jim Rohn called it standing guard at the door of your mind. That means you don't allow just anything to wander into your thinking. You don't allow every opinion, every fear, every criticism, every headline, or every complaint to become part of your mental diet. You choose what you think about the same way you choose what you eat. You don't put poison on your plate. Don't put poison in your mind. You limit the noise. You limit the negativity. You limit the sources that drain you instead of strengthen you. Instead, you feed your mind with wisdom, reading, reflection, gratitude, and possibility. And speaking of gratitude, let me give you a practice that works wonders. Every day, write down 3 things you're grateful for. Not because gratitude magically solves your problems, but because gratitude shifts your focus. And whatever you focus on magnifies. When you start looking for what's right, you begin to see more of it. And when you see more of what's right, you take more right actions. And when you take more right actions, life begins to change. You want another antidote? Replace the pessimistic question, what if it goes wrong, with a new question, what if it works? Now that's a powerful question. That question creates energy. That question inspires action. That question opens the gate of opportunity. My friends, pessimism is not a personality trait, it's a habit. And like any habit, it can be replaced. But if you don't address it, if you let it roam free, it becomes a prison for your potential. Optimism is not pretending everything is perfect. It's believing that with discipline and direction, you can make things better. Once you clear pessimism out of your mind, you suddenly feel lighter, you think clearer, you see further. But even then, there's another quiet disease waiting just around the corner. And this one is sneaky because it disguises itself as admiration. It disguises itself as motivation. It disguises itself as curiosity. But beneath the surface, it slowly erodes your confidence. Let's explore that next. The disease of envy and comparison. Now, my friends, once you've cleaned out pessimism from the mind, there's another disease that tends to slip in through the back door, quiet, subtle, and incredibly destructive. And this one is called envy and comparison. And if you aren't careful, it will steal your joy, your focus, your confidence, and your sense of personal direction. It won't shout. It won't announce itself. But it will whisper. Look at them. Look how far ahead they are. Look how much better they're doing. Look how behind you are. And let me tell you, that whisper can do more damage to your future than any external obstacle you'll ever face. Jim Rohn used to say, "It's not what you get that makes you valuable, it's what you become." And envy destroys that truth. Because envy keeps your eyes on what other people get and off what you are becoming. Instead of building your value, your skill, your character, you spend your days measuring yourself against someone else's highlight reel. And that, my friends, is a recipe for discouragement. Let me tell you how envy becomes a daily habit. It starts small. You scroll through social media just a few minutes. You see someone traveling, someone buying a car, someone announcing a new job, someone bragging about results you haven't achieved yet. And suddenly, without meaning to, you're no longer living your life. You're comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's carefully edited movie trailer. And of course you feel behind because you're making the wrong comparison. Then envy grows legs. You start comparing incomes, lifestyles, relationships, timelines. You're no longer grateful for what you have. You're resentful about what you don't. And the moment resentment enters, progress leaves. Because resentment makes you believe life is unfair. And when you believe life is unfair, you stop trying to make it better. Let me give you the real danger. Envy doesn't just distort how you see others. Envy distorts how you see yourself. It shrinks your confidence. It suffocates your ambition. It convinces you that because someone else is ahead, your effort no longer matters. But my friends, someone else's success is not your failure. Their progress is not your setback. Their timeline is not your deadline. Now here's the antidote, and it's powerful. Turn envy into study. Instead of saying, "Why them?" ask, "What can I learn from them?" That question will change your life. Because envy takes inspiration and turns it into bitterness. But study takes inspiration and turns it into growth. If someone is fitter than you, study their discipline. If someone is wealthier than you, study their habits. If someone is wiser than you, study their mindset. If someone is further than you, study their consistency. Study doesn't shrink you, study expands you. And here's another antidote. Define success for yourself. Let me tell you, borrowed definitions produce borrowed lives. If you chase the life someone else calls success, you may reach it and be miserable. Jim Rohn taught, success is doing your best with what you've got, in the direction you value most. That means your success is personal, custom, tailored, not mass-produced. And finally, keep a record of your own wins. We live in a world where people document everything except the thing that matters, their own progress. Write down the habits you're building, the skills you're learning, the actions you're taking. Because when you track your own growth, you spend less time staring at someone else's. So remember, jealousy shrinks your world. Gratitude expands it. Comparison drains your power. Study increases it. And envy, if left unchecked, will rob you of becoming the person you were destined to be. But even after you clean out envy, remove comparison, and return your focus to your own path, there's still one more disease waiting. One that affects everything. Your standards, your direction, your identity, and your destiny. And this one comes from the company you keep. Let's talk about that next. The disease of wrong associations. Now, my friends, we arrive at one of the most powerful and most underestimated forces shaping your destiny. The people you spend your time with. Jim Rohn used to say, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And let me tell you, that's not a cute slogan. That's a law of life. A law as real as gravity. Because human beings are influence creatures. We absorb attitudes, languages, behaviors, expectations, and standards from the people around us, whether we intend to or not. Some people say, no, not me. I'm strong. I make my own decisions. And I always smile at that. Because everyone thinks they're immune until they look at their results. Your income, your habits, your discipline, your thinking, they all tend to resemble the people you're with most often. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. If you walk into a room where everyone's complaining, give it 10 minutes, you'll be complaining too. If you sit around people with low standards long enough, your standards will drop without you even noticing. If you spend your evenings with drifters, you'll start drifting. If you keep company with people who are always blaming, always gossiping, always settling, you'll start modeling the same patterns. Let me put it plainly. You can't fly with the eagles if you keep scratching with the chickens. Wrong associations aren't always bad people. Sometimes they're good people with bad habits. Sometimes they're kind people with no ambition. Sometimes they're loyal people going nowhere. And loyalty to the wrong crowd has destroyed more futures than failure ever has. You don't have to hate them, just don't imitate them. You don't even have to cut them out entirely. Just manage the proximity, manage the influence, manage the emotional cost. See, the real danger isn't that the wrong people pull you down fast. Oh no, it's that they pull you down slowly, quietly, gently. They normalize inconsistency. They normalize excuses. They normalize drifting. They normalize low standards. And soon, without realizing it, you normalize them too. That's how potential dies, not with a crash, but with a quiet lowering of expectations. So what's the antidote? Jim Rohn taught a brilliant strategy called the association adjustment. It comes in 3 parts. 1, disassociate from harmful people. Not from people who are imperfect, because we're all imperfect, but from people whose influence harms your character, your vision, or your future. If someone constantly drains your energy, disrespects your goals, discourages your growth, or poisons your mindset, it's time to create distance. Not out of bitterness, but out of responsibility. 2, spend limited time with neutral people. These are good folks, nice folks, but they're not going where you're going. They're not growing, not learning, not striving. They're treading water. They're fine to be around, just not too much. They won't sink you, but they won't lift you either. 3, invest time with inspiring people. These are the people who challenge you, stretch you, expect more from you, and model the life you want to build. They lift your thinking. They sharpen your discipline. They expand your vision. And when you're around them, you think bigger, act wiser, and rise higher without even trying, because excellence is contagious too. And if you don't have people like this in your circle yet, don't worry. You can start with virtual mentors, books, lectures, videos. Jim Rohn said, you can have a mentor you've never met. You can learn from the best minds in the world without ever shaking their hand. That's the beauty of this age. Now let me leave you with a simple truth about associations. Your life can only rise to the level of the people you choose to keep close. If your circle doesn't challenge you, inspire you, or make you better, then it's not a circle, it's a cage. And the moment you upgrade your associations, you upgrade your life. Now that we've uncovered all 6 diseases, complaining, excuses, drifting, pessimism, envy, and wrong associations, the question becomes, what do we do now? What's the next step? Knowledge is good, but knowledge without application is just potential. So in the next section, let's gather everything together and explore the antidotes in action, how to replace these diseases with the habits that create a powerful, disciplined, successful life. Now, my friends, after examining these 6 diseases of success, complaining, excuses, drifting, pessimism, envy, and wrong associations, the big question becomes, what do we do about them? Awareness without action is just education. But awareness combined with disciplined action, that's transformation. And transformation is what we're after. Jim Rohn used to say, you cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. Tonight, we change direction. Because the moment you stop tolerating these destructive habits, you create space for the disciplines that build a powerful and extraordinary life. Let's take each disease and replace it with its antidote, step by step, habit by habit. 1, replace complaining with responsibility. Complaining says, life is happening to me. Responsibility says, life is responding to me. Complainers look for someone to blame. Leaders look for something to change. From this day forward, when something goes wrong, ask, what can I do about it? That one question removes you from the victim category and places you into the leadership category. And my friends, you can't build a great life from the wrong category. Responsibility is the foundation of all progress. 2, replace excuses with immediate action. Excuses are elegant stories that protect you from discomfort. Action is the decision to grow. Try this simple practice for the next week. Whenever your mind offers an excuse, any excuse, say, do it anyway. Not ready? Do it anyway. Not perfect? Do it anyway. Not familiar? Do it anyway. You'll be amazed how quickly your life changes when you take action faster than your excuses can multiply. 3. Replace drifting with a daily plan. You can't arrive at a meaningful destination by wandering. Direction beats motion every time. Every morning, write down 3 things. Your top 3 actions for the day. Your highest impact priority. 1 promise to yourself that you must keep. That's how you build discipline, by keeping the promises you make to yourself, because self-respect is earned, not wished for, and a person who trusts their own word becomes powerful. 4. Replace pessimism with mindset management. The mind is a garden. If you don't plant flowers, weeds grow automatically. Stand guard at the door of your mind. Don't let just anything walk in. Choose what you watch, listen to, read, and dwell on. Replace what if it goes wrong with what if it works. Replace I can't with I'm learning. Feed your mind wisdom. Protect it from nonsense. Program it with purpose. Because you cannot build a positive life with a negative mind. That's a law. 5. Replace envy with study and gratitude. Envy says, I wish I had what they have. Study says, let me learn what they know. Envy shrinks you. Study expands you. Turn jealousy into curiosity. Turn comparison into inspiration. Turn resentment into personal growth. And don't forget, gratitude is the antidote to feeling behind. If you count your blessings, you'll never run out of reasons to move forward. 6. Replace wrong associations with growth-oriented connections. Your life will rise to the level of your circle. It will also collapse to the level of your circle. So make the adjustments. Disassociate from the harmful. Limit the neutral. Invest in the inspiring. If you don't have the right people in your life yet, start with books, lectures, mentors, and role models. Jim Rohn said, we are affected by what we know and who we know. If you don't know the right people yet, borrow them through their work until you find them in person. Because you can't soar like an eagle while keeping company with people who never leave the ground. Now let's bring it all together. What does your life begin to look like when you replace all 6 diseases with the 6 antidotes? You stop complaining and start leading. You stop excusing and start acting. You stop drifting and start directing. You stop expecting the worst and start preparing for the best. You stop comparing and start becoming. You stop lowering your standards and start lifting your circle. Your days become structured. Your mind becomes clearer. Your habits become stronger. Your confidence grows. Your identity improves. Your results compound. And before long, you realize something remarkable. You're no longer fighting against your old life. You're building a new one, brick by brick, habit by habit, decision by decision. My friends, success isn't something you pursue. It's something you attract by the person you become. And when you practice these antidotes daily, you become the kind of person success has a hard time ignoring. Now that we've assembled the antidotes, it's time to close this lesson with clarity, purpose, and a final challenge. Let's move into the last section, the outro, where we bring it all home and anchor these lessons into your daily life. My friends, as we bring this entire lesson to a close, let me remind you of something powerful. These 6 diseases are not punishments. They are warnings. They are signals, gentle taps on the shoulder from life itself, saying, you're capable of more, you're meant for more, but you cannot rise while you're carrying these habits. Now, awareness is a wonderful thing. Awareness is the beginning of progress, because once you see something clearly, you can never unsee it. Once you recognize that complaining steals your joy, that excuses steal your action, that drifting steals your direction, that pessimism steals your hope, that envy steals your gratitude, and that wrong associations steal your standards, you begin to understand why your results look the way they do. And better yet, you understand how to change them. Jim Rohn used to say, for things to change, you have to change. Not your boss, not your government, not the economy, not your spouse, not your past you. And the moment you decide to change, even if the progress is small at first, you set in motion a chain reaction that can transform your entire future. Maybe tonight you recognize one of these diseases in yourself. Good. That means you're awake. Maybe you recognize 2. Better you're honest. Maybe you recognized all 6. Perfect. That means you're ready. See, honesty with yourself is the highest form of respect, and self-respect is the foundation of discipline. So here's my challenge to you. Simple, powerful, unforgettable. Choose one disease to eliminate this week. Just one. Not all 6 at once. Not a total life overhaul. Just one. Start where you are. Start small. Start today. If you complain, often replace it with responsibility. If you excuse, often replace it with action. If you drift, replace it with a written plan. If you expect the worst, replace it with guarded thoughts. If you compare, replace it with gratitude and study. If your associations hold you back, begin adjusting your circle. Then next week, choose another. And then another. And slowly, quietly, your life will take on a new shape. Not overnight, not in a flash, but day by day. Discipline by discipline. Choice by choice. Let me leave you with the truth. Jim Rohn repeated all his life. Success is something you attract by the person you become. Become a person who takes responsibility. Become a person who acts instead of delays. Become a person who plans instead of drifts. Become a person who protects their mind. Become a person who studies, grows, and evolves. Become a person who chooses their associations wisely. Because the world doesn't pay you for what you want, or what you hope, or what you dream. The world pays you for what you do, and what you do flows directly from who you are. So tonight, make yourself a promise. I will no longer let these diseases run my life. I will lead myself out. And once you make that promise, once you keep it daily, you'll look up one day and discover something extraordinary. You didn't have to chase success. Success started following you. My friends, that is the art of personal leadership. And that is the beginning of a whole new life.